Hello, my name's Paul Zablocki, Development Gifts Officer at Canisius High School, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another episode of Conversations with Canisius, the web series where we connect alumni from around the world with the classrooms on Delaware Avenue. Today, my guest is John Strauss from the class of 1957. John, thank you for joining us, and why don't you start by giving us an opportunity to tell us about your journey since Canisius High School?
All right, that could take a lot longer than we have, but I graduated from high school in '57, as you mentioned, and I went on to Canisius College. I was a physics major, started out as, and ended up about junior year deciding I really wanted to go to law school because I wanted to get in the investment business. So I thought, so I went into a pre-law course, which ended up being English Lit, which I was very glad to do. I didn't realize how much it prepared me. I went on to law school. I didn't finish law school because I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I did want to be in the investment business. I went a year to the University of Buffalo, now called SUNY. I called it UB. And I went on to NYU, worked in New York, got an MBA, majored in banking and finance, and worked in the investment business. I started out originally with Marine Midland. I had a summer job, and that I found summer jobs important while I was going to school, whether it be high school or college or even law school. But I worked at the bank, I worked in the investment department, and I really fell in love with that business. I started out in New York City. I moved to New York after graduating after graduating college and law school, leaving law school, and joined up at Graduate School of Business. I was a credit trainee, but I asked for securities research about 6 months later, got that, fell in love with that business. So I ended up being a greedy Wall Streeter. And some people might not think that's a very socially prominent job, but I loved it. I loved the idea that I really, I guess, was interested in not only making money for myself, but I was making money for other people. And we're managing, profit sharing plans and retirement plans and foundation money and whatnot. So that's really what I love to do. We call it the institutional side of the business. I eventually became a portfolio manager after being a security analyst. And securities analyst is the correct word. I wasn't worried about people's safety. I was worried about their financial well-being. So that's called securities analyst. And I became a portfolio manager, which most guys like to do because the security analyst recommends to portfolio managers, and they sometimes listen to you, they sometimes don't. And when you have a good record, and they haven't listened to you, you say, I want to make those decisions. Besides, you can make more money. So I did that. And I was very lucky to be able to continue that type of career. I went on. I got talked into coming into Dallas. I was a little tired of living in the New Jersey, New York area. Although when I look back, I really liked it and I enjoyed it. But I came to Dallas and I worked at Republic Bank for 7.5 years. I eventually became director of research, which was a learning experience also. And I'll talk a little bit about what I learned from the high school and the college that helped me to do research. But and then after about 7.5 years, myself and 3 other guys, we were equal partners, founded our own investment advisory firm it's called Barrel Handling Mooney and Strauss. We went from over about a 20-year period of time or 25-year period of time, went from 0 to 100 billion in assets under management. It wasn't our money, but we earned a fee off of that. And we managed money for Vanguard, which was very important. But we managed money it was institutional only. It was not retail. Although we did manage the Windsor 2 fund, which are retail customers. But Vanguard was the manager of that fund. But we managed money for the Federal Reserve Bank and for IT&T and for General Motors and Baxter Labs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We had a great client list. And so that was kind of, and then I retired, now I guess it'd be about 20 years ago. And then a couple of years later, I got tired of being retired. I was 58 years old at the time. I went back in at age 60 to start a hedge fund. And I did that for about 5 years, then decided I really needed to retire. I wanted to do my own thing. And I set up a foundation, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. And that was my way of giving back. The foundation is now about, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. And anyway, I guess that's my answer to my journey. It's there's a lot more to it than that, and I'm going to try and keep it down.
Why don't you talk about your preparation that you received at Canisius?
All right, it's not an easy question, because sometimes the influence of your education is, you could argue it's subtle, but I'm gonna say it, and you can decide whether you think it's worthwhile. I learned to think at the high school and the college and grade school, and I'd like to think I'm keeping up that struggle. It was a struggle. I read a lot. I was a big reader. I suggest to young students, which we really get into your next question, but it's read, study hard, work hard. I learned values. I learned right from wrong. I spent a little time in Jug, but my major crime was coming to Friday Mass a couple of times late. And Father Sturm, he showed me the after hours, classroom, and had to print it out. In fact, I got to see him before he died. Actually, played golf with him. So anyway, he was a great guy.
Yes.
I really had no idea all during this time what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I loved music. I formed a big band at the high school. Used to play at dances after basketball games at the college, the high school had, what's the word? I forget words easily these days now. In order to use the practice room, I had to play at a couple of the dances. So, quid pro quo, as the good Latin students will remember. And as I say, it's hard to pinpoint down. It's the brain power, I think, and I listed some things when you say I'm gonna anticipate your next question, Paul, which is the Ignatian formation. What role did it play in my life? Because it's really the same question to me. It's thinking is challenging ideas to me. It's eventually at the college, I eventually got on the debate team. And I'd like to think that the high school prepared me for that. And I would recommend to students, beware of the internet, beware of other people's ideas. It's okay to listen. In fact, I encourage you to listen to them, but form your own. I have a relative who thinks that research is looking through the internet to find things that support his opinion. And as director of research, you didn't have an opinion, particularly when you were dealing with equity stocks. The research was to try and formulate that opinion, to have a recommendation. And so when you talk about education, I think that's important to you do your research and be open-minded. But in my not knowing how to answer the question of that Ignatian formation, how it benefited me, it's subtle. Faith was very important. Working hard. I was, sure, I worked hard, but I did things I loved to do, and that's important. Boy, the toughest thing, I used to have summer jobs when I was in high school and even college, where you didn't like what you were doing. I learned what not to do, and that was important to me. Stay busy. I learned back in high school that idleness is the workshop of the devil. So, it doesn't mean I was a great procrastinator. I'm far from perfect, but I know what I think I know my idea of perfect is, and that's to work hard and be open-minded. And that's important, especially these days, because, I see things that I don't like, and I'm not going to get into the politics of today, but it's hard when you see what's going on in the world. When I talk about faith, I'm talking about what's right and wrong. And to me, abortion's wrong. To me, censorship is wrong. And I'm seeing a lot of that, and it really is very disturbing to me. I'd like to think my education at Canisius High School had a lot to formulate those ideas. It's hard to pinpoint it at this point in time, but and I'm going to anticipate your next question, Paul, if you don't mind, which is the things that I would suggest or recommend to young kids. It's hard for an 81-year-old like me to say this is what you need to do, although I'm going to say it anyway. And the students will be inclined to say, gee, he's an old guy, things are different today. No, they're not. It's the same. And the more that things change, the more they stay the same, I found out. It's just a matter of time going by. One of the things, a great example of what I'm saying, when I was in the debate team at the college, and I don't mean to talk too much about the college, but when I was in the debate team, we had two subjects at my last 2 years, junior and senior year. And the first one was, does the Supreme Court legislate? Does that sound familiar? And the second question, which was in my senior year, was, should we have national health insurance? Does that sound familiar? And I don't think things change. We struggle with many of the same issues. My advice to students would be work hard, but still have fun. It's easy to say work hard. If you're doing what you love to do, I never thought of working hard. I wanted to do. I stayed up late. I read a lot. I loved interviewing companies. I love to understand how companies work and what motivates them. And today I'm concerned about that because I'm afraid that politics and corporate, the corporate world are getting a little too involved with each other. But that's a whole nother subject. Be happy, stay free. I listened to Dennis Prager the other day. He said, people today, particularly in America, they're too willing to give up their freedom to be they want to be taken care of. And I don't think that's a good philosophy. And he's not suggesting it; he's just regretting it. We're afraid, and I'm watching what's happening during this COVID crisis. How people are giving up their freedom so willingly, just so that we talk about being safe. Well, you got to look at that. I would a little differently maybe. Don't be afraid to be original in your thinking. Challenge other people. Challenge yourself. And I would say, be open to both sides. That's what I loved about. I was in the theater, I was in grade school, high school, college, and even when I graduated, I remember at law school, some of us, like John LaFalce and whatnot, we go over to Rosary Hill and we volunteer ourselves to be in the theater. What that does is it helps you to think on your feet. Don't be afraid of audiences. Don't be afraid to express yourself. I found a lot of young men, when they come to me in research, really had trouble telling their story and letting their mind come through their mouth. It was very difficult. I had a motivation when the foundation, I know I haven't really talked much about that, but to me, we have a faith-based foundation. It's multi-million. It's not huge, but it's enough to make a difference. And that's what motivates me, is make a difference in the world. And I can give back. Unfortunately, a lot of people who are successful don't do that. And I wish they did. If you could affect the life of one other person, you made a difference in this world. And so give back, whether it's money, that's one way, or influencing others, teach and whatnot. And I had one of my classmates in high school say to me recently, gee, John, you were just lucky, and you made all that money. You know what? I don't know whether I was lucky or not, but I hate that word because it suggests that, you don't have to work hard. And I think, the harder you work, the luckier you're going to get. Or somebody told me today, they said the Romans used to say, fortune favors the bold. So be bold. And I love life. Don't be afraid of it. We got a lot of things to be afraid of. But if the Lord allows us, we'll have some good fortune. You want to call that luck? Go ahead, but don't give up. Don't give up the ship.
John, that was I thank you for the insights. And you might wonder what the minds of a 17 or 16-year-old young man might glean from your remarks. But I will say, um, as a young man myself, that everything you said resonates. You create
Great,
your own,
great.
luck. You create your own opportunity.
Correct,
And
correct.
by being prepared and by putting the time in, and those transcend generations. That's no different from being at a desk in 1955 or 1999 or 2019. Those are all very real.
Let me, you make me think of something. The little philosophy of life for me is, yeah, I would consider myself, and I don't want to get into politics, but I consider myself a social moderate and a fiscal conservative. That means I don't really agree with all the money we're spending, just throwing away, and the debt's going up. And I learned that from my financial background. But socially, I'm a guy who says, I want to teach somebody how to fish, but I don't want to give them fish unless they really can't. And so the whole purpose of the foundation was to help those people that are poor and needy. In fact, we set up the foundation. I said it was faith-based. The purpose of it was to help the poor and needy, the disadvantaged. And that's 50%. And then a quarter of it for education. Well, that's the poor and needy in most cases anyway. And a quarter of it for the arts. And I think a lot of people forget the arts. It's so important. When I talk about arts, I'm talking about music, talking about theater, I'm talking about, a lot of things, the ability to perform, because we're involved in some charities that do that, that provide the venue for performing. And it's really tough these days with COVID because, they're trying to shut that down. And I hate to say it that way, but, it sounds like I'm a conspiracy theorist, but and
Well,
I probably am.
it's incredibly challenging when you're limited to for gathering size and anything else to be able to rehearse and practice to be able to perform. And
Yeah.
art art is
I
a
think to be
reflection.
positive too. I want to be positive in this period of time. That it's so easy to be negative. I mean, I can think of a lot of things, but if you do that, you're really hurting yourself and those around you. Um, you know, the glass is half full or it's half empty. I know it's a little more half empty these days than it is half full, but it's nevertheless it depends on how you want to look at it, and it's tough. It's tough to do that, especially if you've got some really serious problems. But I've been through a lot of health issues and whatnot, and yeah, being positive is really very important, and in surviving, I think. And I learned, yeah, I could say I learned that at Canisius, and in the subtle way that it's hard to pinpoint, but it's been extremely helpful. The Jesuits are great. I actually thought about becoming one, and then I fell in love with a woman before I was able to make that decision. So I'd made the right decision. And anyway, the Jesuits have been very important to me. I had my teacher, one of the teachers in Buffalo, who was a Jesuit, essentially my second father, and he was very important to me. And then I got to know somebody who wasn't at the high school, he was at the college, but Ed Maloney, Father Maloney, he was my golf partner. So, I had outside activities that I encourage people to do, but you do what you like to do. I love to play golf, and I always have, and I love music. And so, I chair the board at the University of North Texas College of Music, the largest music school in the country, and one of the best, and probably the best jazz school, because 1 O'Clock Lab Band's played all over the world for over 50 years. Anyway, I got myself really active. That's another thing I do from the foundation is to stay active. If you don't stay active, am I retired? Yes. Am I busy? Yes. You can't go home and watch TV all the time, which is probably part of the problem with COVID because it's hard to do what you want to do. But
True.
anyway, I still stay active, and I don't, I wear a mask, I wash my hands, I stay 6 feet apart, but I don't hold myself up in the house. If God wants me to have the COVID, then I'm going to get it. But I'm going to be careful, but I'm not going to be stupid. So
John, I want to thank you for your preparation and for your great insight to the questions today, and for, also thank you on behalf of all of those institutions that have benefited from your foundation over the years. It's missions like your foundation have that allows so many other groups to succeed in what they do. And as the recipient of benefactor support, our boys wouldn't be able to go to Canisius High School if we didn't have gentlemen like yourself. It's a straight line. Thank you for that. It means
Oh,
a tremendous
great,
amount.
great. Well, it's great to be a part of that. I appreciate what you're doing with people like myself to encourage the young people today to do what we did. And if you're lucky, you'll get there. But work hard and you'll get luckier. That's my message. And I'm sticking to it.
Full circle. I like it. All right, John. Thank you so much.
All right, good, Paul.